What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode from Break Turn. Today, we're having a conversation with Cameron and Eddie from FlexAir. They're one of our partners at Break Turn, and continuing on with our theme of the year of the AMP. The AMPs, the mechanics, they keep the airplanes in the sky and just so integral to the process of aviation. And so we wanted to chat with them about their programs, about AMP, and they've got pilot programs and SkillBridge and all of that. So we're going to share some time together, about an hour, talking with these guys. So thanks, guys, for coming and joining us. How you guys doing today?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Doing great. Can't complain back in California, so that's great.
Beautiful California. Well, awesome. Well, if you guys don't mind, just if you want to introduce yourself, Cameron, if you want to go first, and just who you are. I know both of y'all are vets, so give people an idea of who you are, where you've been, what you're doing, all that stuff.
Yeah, so my name's Cameron Kenning. Retired 20 years and 12 days to be exact, out of the Army.
Not that you're keeping track, just
not that I'm keeping track. I really wanted to hit that 20-year mark, but they wouldn't let me. Retired 15 Yankee, so Apache armament avionics through and through for 20 years. Then retired, got my CFI certificate, and prior to retirement, got my AMP certificate. Currently working at FlexAir as the general manager. We have 3 bases: San Diego, so MYF, Manhattan, Kansas, MHK, and Olathe, South Kansas City, OJC.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Eddie Erdmann. So I did 20 years, a little bit longer than the 12 days. 20 years, 2 months, 28 days as a Marine infantry guy, and didn't know what I was going to do when I grew up. Was looking to transition. Wanted to try to stay close to San Diego. My wife and I own a company out here as well, and I was in the search for SkillBridge. So I applied for NASA, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, at a couple other places, Lowe's, and I got job offers, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to work for money. I don't want to have to move up north to the NASA annex, and so I found this little thing called SkillBridge or FlexAir on the SkillBridge website, and looked on their website, read around a little bit, and coincidentally saw a silhouette over the position of manager in San Diego. So I emailed the CEO, Paul Wins, and said, hey, whatever that job is, I want to do it. He's like, well, I'm not hiring anybody in San Diego, but I am in Kansas. I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. I'm good in California still. But he said, hey, let's converse. And we zoomed it up. And 1 year later, exactly, here I am. I serve as the executive director of business development for FlexAir. And I'm the lead mentor for all the veterans that come through our SkillBridge, and also help run the company with Cameron.
That's awesome. Well, I know we love partnering with FlexAir, SkillBridge, and just really educating folks on the opportunities. I know we for a while just had trouble finding any sort of programs that were able to do SkillBridge on the West Coast. And so partnering with y'all has been amazing because, east of the East Coast we've got plenty, but the West Coast and kind of Central America or Central US, I should say, is difficult. But tell me about FlexAir. I mean, 3 locations, from what I understand about flight schools and this whole business model, having 3 locations is pretty fantastic. So tell me, like, what do you guys do? Tell us about your school and all that stuff.
Yeah, Cameron, you want to talk operation stuff?
Yeah, so FlexAir, we excuse me, we provide affordable flight training to anybody really, but main focus being veterans. And FlexAir, we really put a lot of value in work-life balance, opposed to other schools. You get to pick your schedule, with some stipulations, right? As good as we can. So we give you a lot of flexibility within the programs that you're in. We understand that, students learn at faster or slower paces than other students. There's not a one size fits all for one individual, because everybody's different. And then we try to measure our success by the opportunities we create for students out the door. That's how we measure our success as a flight school. Eddie, you got anything you want to add?
Yep. Yeah, and so then on another level, we take it as that fact as we know how it is transitioning out of service, and we know a lot of service members want to transition, obviously, to an organization that's close to their home. As mentioned, we got a West Coast school, we have a Central America school, and we are opening a East Coast school. So because we want to pay attention to that geographical location that service members either want to transition out of, retire out of, and so on. Our school is a little different versus a lot of flight schools because we are flexible, right? It's in our name. And so we try to take that approach, and we provide a lot of mentorship, a lot of engaged leadership, because that's what we came from. That's what we liked. And we know that's what service members want. And actually, that's really what I talked to Paul about when I wanted to get out. I said, hey, listen, I just want to do something new, enjoy what I'm doing, help veterans if I can. And so we approach that with three avenues. One, we assign you a CFI. The CFIs can teach you everything about flying. Then you're going to be assigned to a base manager like Cameron as well and his team. And so they have that approach. They can communicate that way. If there's any issues with the operations or the tempo is too quick or too slow, they can go to their base manager for that. And then they're assigned a mentor, whether they're a civilian mentor or a veteran mentor like myself. And then so we attack them that way as well, so that there's a mediator in case there's an issue, right? Because we understand too that it's also people and people. So if a student's not pairing with their CFI, then they'll reach out to the mentor, and the mentor will talk to the base manager, CFI, to find out what the issue is and how can we resolve it. And it's all professional, it's nothing personal. And that's kind of the approach that we take on that. And so we have a lot of partnerships, a lot of outreach. You got myself. We try to stay in the know of what's going on in the aviation. Myself and Paul are board members for the NFTA, which is the National Flight Training Alliance. And so we're very in tune with the Part 141 reform, and obviously partnerships with schools and other organizations, new innovation by aerospace, which is the all electric aircraft. So that's kind of the approach that we take as well, but only to benefit the students. And so what I try to tell everybody, whether you're a student or a CFI looking for a school to attend and go to, is don't look for a school that's going to build your logbook, because that's implied, right? You're going to meet the mins. You want to find a school that's going to help you build a resume. And so that we take that approach to make you more effective, so that when you do stand there in front of that recruiter, chances are they're going to say yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, you said a couple things that kind of perked my ears up. That first one I wrote down was electric aircraft. I saw on the website. I know some of the old crusty pilots and maintainers are like, I'm not touching that. What is that about? I mean, I know that's kind of the way of the future, but are you guys getting a fleet of, or already have electric airplanes? I mean, what's that?
Yeah, so they're in development right now. I can't go too much into it, but I can say we have an order for 7 of them right now. There's not new, right? There's a lot of things that are up and coming. We can talk about hydrogen. We can talk about hybrid hydrogen electric. I can go for days and geek out about this. But as far as that, yes, it's new. So you do have a lot of people that are like, man, what is this new stuff, right? Because I can remember my great grandma when she was 97 years old and FaceTime, and she's like, what is this blasphemy? So it is a culture shock to a lot of people. It's A-okay. We will be all right. And the thing is that we all have to be ready for change. And so if you don't want to change, then you will be changed. So
it's like for Cameron, you say electric aircraft, and I'm thinking honestly, now that I think of it, the way of the future, not that I have a crystal ball, but it seems like we're trending towards that with electric cars and all that stuff. From a maintenance side, I feel like that'd be a pretty big advantage once those come in play at the school, for the maintenance side of how to get your hands on these newer, I'll call it newer technology. Is that something that the mechanics are looking at too, on how to work on electric airplanes?
Oh, well, I mean, the FARs are going to have to get caught up with it, but it seems like it's going to be a lot easier for us, if I'm being honest.
Really?
Right.
It'll be easier with the electric. I guess there's less
not
moving
much
parts,
to 'em.
I guess.
Yeah, not much to them. Couple motors and some batteries. I'm sure it's a lot more complicated than that, but
that's why people are scared, is because they don't understand how the magic works. It's just a battery and then the propeller turns. That's awesome. Right. You also talked about the society. I think you guys, the flight school is doing some research. Like, you guys have gotten some awards, and I'm not trying to tout, but I know if I don't, y'all won't, because you're humble. That's pretty significant, because there's so many flight schools across the country. Like, what are what are some of the awards you guys got, and how do you get those, and what does that mean to someone who's looking for a mom and pa flight school or going to one that has these accolades? What's the differentiator there?
Yeah. So honestly, I think the secret to it is we just kept stay true to ourselves.
That's good.
We weren't really too sure what we were getting ourselves into. We grew kind of over the last 3 years pretty quickly. We got a new organization going, and then we got a whole new model of how we approach students and work in general. And so, yes, we were named Best Flight School in the Pacific region by AOPA. So we were out in Colorado at the Redbird Migration this last year and accepted the award there. That was awesome. That was a unique award because this year they did it a little differently. They did a blind test, a blind judging. And so what they did is they took all the reviews that we had. Students had to write, recommendations. They had people checking out our schools. And so the judges were just reading scripts, and they left out all but this. They didn't leave the school name in, and we were voted as one of the winners. Excuse me. And so that was pretty cool. It was pretty amazing. And then shortly after that, which we had a little hint of because the results were in last year, but Textron named us best flight school through the Textron program, and they had only 4 winners in the world. So 3 in America, 1 out in Europe. And that was pretty awesome because they gave us a brand new Cessna 172,
Wow.
2025. We got to pick the colors of the aircraft. I got to pick the tail number, and rightfully out there in Kansas, they tear it up out there. So 913 is the last numbers. Fox Alpha 913 is the area code for Olathe. So I thought it was only fitting, and that's all credited to the team. I mean, it's not even Flexair as a whole. It's the instructors, it's the students, it's the maintainers, it's everybody putting their piece into it because we couldn't have done it without everybody.
No, I love that. It's like I equate it to in the military when you do like an arms inspection, which is like a curse word, or
Yeah.
the what is it? The aviation maintenance. They inspect the ground maintenance, and you don't get that unless your whole program is pretty solid. And for those who are considering choosing flight schools, obviously partnering with a mentor at Break Turn, we kind of try to figure out what your goals are and regions of the country, et cetera. But what I will say, and this is more of an opinion based, it's not a universal truth, but where you go, it does matter. Just like college. Yes, if to a certain degree, if you have a bachelor's, you have a bachelor's, right? But if you have a degree from uh, um, a better school, it does help when you're competing against others who have the same bachelor degree. So going to a flight school that like Flex Air that can kind of get you what you need, but the correct way, it does better when you go to an interview. Talk with a lot of recruiters, and yes, the logbook matters. Do you have the ratings? Yes, it matters. But in a competitive market like we're experiencing right now in 2025, where you go matters. The program you go through, the instructors, how you got it, that's all awesome. So, and then the mentor piece. Because again, we have notes, but if anyone knows me, I don't follow the notes. I'm kind of a loose cannon over here, but that's unique. Explain to me the mentor thing, because most flight schools kind of get you in, they sit you down, they sit an instructor in front of you, and you go through the program. What's this mentor thing? If you could explain that to me.
Yeah, no worries, and it's exactly that. So, good segues into this is the fact that one, we don't, we stress this through everybody. We don't look at students as dollar signs or numbers. We don't. And as a matter of fact, we just had Flight Deck 2025. We coined it every year. There we get all the managers, the leaders who will sit around the table and talk about the next year and what we're going to do. But we go around and ask the instructors, hey, how many students have you had? You get some that say 4 or 5. You get some that say 45, 60. I'm at 60, pounding their chest. I'm like, oh, that's great. That's awesome. Well, how many instructors do you think that student has had? Maybe 1? Oh, shoot, that's wild. So for you, this is redundant, right? This is constantly going. It's Groundhog Day. But for that student, this is their very first experience. How about we revert back to when you had their very first student? Remember that adrenaline pumping through you? You're kind of nervous about hey, am I going to do the right thing? Are they going to like me? Are we going to mesh well? But you're very motivated, right? So let's revert back to that. Let's bring both of those energies together, and it's going to create one. And so then now you got the mentors, right? The veteran mentors, where we're also there along the line, like especially when they're getting beat up in their aircraft and they can't stick their landings, right? They can't stick their landings, and you're like, oh shoots, right? You're like, oh shoots, here we go, right? But you got that mentor to back you up. And then further, when you talk about the resume, and how about making themselves more competitive. I've gone to every aviation conference this year so far. I've been to RTAG, NGPA, OBAP, you name it. I've gone, and I'm standing in line, long lines with with the students. And so I'll go in there with techniques, and I'll say, okay, which top 3 airlines you want to talk to? Blank, blank, blank. Okay, great. Flip it upside down, and what we're going to do, we're going to talk to them in that order. So that way, when you get up to your number one that you chose, you're ready for it, you're motivated for it, and you didn't mess up, right? And so here I am as a cheerleader and a coach, because that's what I am, and I'm all about it. So that they know they're not alone. And and I revert a lot of this back to my Marine Corps times. And so in the Marine Corps, we had a documentation called Sustaining the Transformation. That's been around for about 25 years, 24 years. It was written by General Krulak. Well, the then Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, Sergeant Major Troy Black, he used to be one of my first sergeants when I was a young buck. And then it was his initiative led by Sergeant Major Carlos Ruiz, who's the current Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. So there was 15 of us. I was asked to join the team, 15 of us, to rewrite this documentation. It just talked about from becoming a civilian to getting recruited, to going to boot camp, to going to your school, then hitting the fleet, and then afterwards, right? So I felt, because I was part of that, I want to continue that legacy as well. And so all our team have been jumped on that, and it's just been a great synergy.
No, I love that because and I love the mental picture you had, because it's really hard as people to remember, the first day you jumped into a plane, or the first time you smelled the fuel, or you smelled the either new or old smell of a Cessna. And it's just so much. And to bring it back to that, and then going past that, I love the mentor idea, because honestly, the flight training or whatever training you're getting, it's a means to the door to the next thing. Not that, in other words, we're not going to stay in a training status. We're going to get our
Right.
ratings, we're going to get our flight time, we're going to get our certifications, and we don't really stay there. We use that to go to the next thing, and that is intimidating, a whole new layer of intimidation and stress. And so having mentors there who understand it, that's huge, because I don't know. I remember just like you just said, standing in line for an interview from the military, unless you did boards, we don't interview. And
Right.
then and layer on top of that, quiet professional, we're not
Hmm.
supposed to talk about ourselves, but then in an interview, you have to talk about yourself. And
Yeah.
so, like you said, reversing the top 3, it's a great technique, because by the time you get to the one you want, you're comfortable.
Right.
Um, but I love that. That's awesome. Well, we'll get into, I want to talk about the flexibility, but let's
Yeah.
do that per section. I wanted to start, talking first and foremost about the A&P stuff. The pilot market ebbs and flows. Right now it's kind of on a lull. A lot of people aren't hiring, and it's cyclic in nature, and we'll touch on that on the end as well. But the mechanics, we had a interview with Nick McMillan, who kind of enlightened me about just the breadth of opportunities that A&Ps have. Like, whether it's working on planes or helicopters or cruise ships or roller coasters or escalators, just blew my mind. So educating those mechanics, those crew chiefs, on what is out there. The next question for me becomes like, what do I do, Landon? Where do I go? And we've had a couple interviews of people said what they did. I think one guy went to Long Island. But you guys have an A&P training pipeline. Let's start there. What is it? How, let's just start talking about it. What kind of mechanic stuff do you have?
Mm, Yeah, so you know, we kind of bridge the gap. So your crew chiefs, and there's several eligible MOSs just to go test out, because that's essentially what you can do is go test out, and we'll talk in depth about that. But like an avionics guy might not meet all the requirements, all the experience requirements, but he still meets half of them, right? So to bridge that gap, and even bridging the gap with a crew chief, right? Even though he's eligible to take the test, doesn't necessarily mean he'll be successful in passing those tests with the, we'll call it complex knowledge, because helicopters and fighter jets, those are all very complex pieces of equipment, when half the information we need to know is, 1940s technology and a reciprocating engine that they just don't know. Even though they may never plan on working on those things and may go straight to American Airlines as an engine tech, you still have to know that information to test out. So you'd show up here, and then I'm the resident A&P here, so I do a lot of scheduled, unscheduled maintenance. We have some maintenance suppliers, but if they can't get to it, I'm the second best option. I love airplanes flying, so I'm not going to let them sit around. And they would work as an apprentice under me to gain that experience to bridge the gap to make them not necessarily eligible, but successful to take the test. Pilots, we do 8710s. Mechanics do 8610s. So one of the first steps that a crew chief could do is their local FSDO, schedule an appointment, an interview with the ASI, and the ASI will interview them. And if they meet the requirements, he will sign their 8610s, which those are good for life. And that says you are eligible to take the 3 tests that are required. Well, I guess 6. You have your general written, your airframe written, your power plant written, and then all 3 oral and practicals.
Okay. So I got some questions there. So
yeah, go ahead.
I'm not a mechanic, and I told you before we started the recording, not because you're sitting here, but I am enamored by A&Ps and just people with hard skills. I open up the hood of a Cessna, and I'm just completely confused and intimidated. And mechanics come over with grease on their hands, chewing bubble gum, and they're like, "Oh, I know what's wrong with it. Ain't got no gas in it," right? They just know what's wrong with it. And it's an amazing skill. And I think, to your point, the crew chiefs and the people working on fighter jets and advanced airframes, it's almost like, I don't want to say they're overqualified, but they almost have to learn the basics of reciprocating engine stuff. And so it's really neat. So you're saying that when they get to you, yes, they still have to not learn the test. I don't want to downplay it like that,
Sure.
but they're going to fill the gap in what they didn't know working on a Black Hawk. Is that right?
We got to come, because I think Army, military aviators and aviation maintenance technicians, when we join the military, we're afforded a unique opportunity where we go straight to the top to very complex equipment. Whereas in the civilian sector, you start back in time, at ground level. So we kind of skip that step. So we have to revert back and come back and learn all the stuff that we didn't.
I love that. So the 8610. So so if I'm a crew chief, I'm just doing my job, what my platoon sergeant tells me to do. Like, what is that? It's like, how do is that like a log of what I've done, and then I take that to the ASI? Like, if I don't know what that is, what do I do?
Man, you're getting me back into Army lingo and arms inspections, but during arms, what do you have? The aviation maintenance training program where they all keep logs now. So yeah, show up with that, and that's your experience.
That's awesome. So, and I think the reason that's important, we had an interview before, is that I think the conversation was, are you a mechanic? Yes. Are you qualified? Absolutely. But the test, the ticket that you need, involves you needing to do, I think he had said he was working with like cloth or like props
dope and fabric
things.
Yeah, right.
Yes, exactly. So going and getting the skills to pass that test, and then when you go to interview as a mechanic, they see all that advanced airframe stuff, and they're like, "Oh wow, like you're way more advanced than someone who just worked on GA like their entire career," right?
Right. And they may say, "Hey, I'm going to need you to go back and get some experience with sheet metal or avionics or wires or whatever the case is." And you do that under an A&P, and then you take that experience back and get your 8610 signed by the ASI. But he'll let you know if there is a gap in what you should work on. So that's kind of the first step, is finding that gap.
Okay. So a mechanic goes to ASI, they get their 8610 signed off, and so they reach out to y'all, and we'll get to that in a minute. But they show up, and they kind of have a custom built training program to kind of fill in their gaps, and then their posture to take their tests. Like, are they on a syllabus? Is it kind of per service member? Like, how would that work for someone who just came and showed up?
Right. So no syllabus. But yes, kind of. So they would work underneath me, and then let's just say they do a 4-month SkillBridge with us as an intern AMP or an apprentice AMP underneath myself. That last month, we would send them to a course with a partner school of ours in a neighboring town, and he runs a 10-day expedited AMP prep course where they go over everything. Basic electricity, they cover all the subject areas, and then included in that course is the written test as well as the oral and practicals over at K-State testing facility with the DME. So then they'll do the apprentice thing and then drink through the fire hose in a crash course and go get their tickets.
That's like the pilot's version of Shepherd Air, where
kind of
you learn the stuff, but then you saturate yourself in Shepherd Air and you get all what you need to know and take the test. So.
Right, very similar, but a lot of it, most of it's in the classroom. Being in the military, we got these awesome programs that do weight and balance for us. Well, as AMPs, guess what we got to do? We got to calculate it by hand. So it's kind of all those things. Like I said, stepping back in time, right? That you have to know. And then we'll go on a hangar floor, time magnetos, buck rivets, all that stuff that we didn't capture here working underneath me that you could possibly be tested on. DMEs, designated maintenance examiners, don't get to pick what you're tested on anymore. I think that changed about 10 years ago. So whatever the FAA tells them the day of the test is what you get tested on. And it could be anything.
I'll get made fun of for saying this, but that's kind of my MO. I equate it to air assault school when you have to inspect all the sling loads, and you can spend as much time as you want. And then when you go to take the test, you have like a minute to find 3 deficiencies. So you're saying that that's an opportunity for you to kind of go over all the things you could be tested on before the test to get familiarity with it.
Correct.
Brian, earlier, you owe me a Coke because I said air assault on a podcast. So one thing that I think is I want to kind of put my finger on it is that flexibility piece. So the fact that there's a program, but it's also kind of catered to the individual. That's a huge advantage for a mechanic that's in the military looking to transition. The distance between where you are now in the military as a maintainer to getting your AMP and getting a civilian occupation, doing maintenance on the civilian side, I would propose you're greater than 50% of the way there, probably more than 50.
Right.
You just need to fill in those gaps. And so the ability for Cameron and his team to bring you in, lay out what you've done over your career, figure out what you need to get trained on specifically, and then at the end kind of review the totality of what's expected with flexibility, that's huge. Because I know a lot of programs that kind of set you on the rails, which is good if you need that. But if you just need something catered to you in terms of time, people have families and they may not have as much time off, or maybe their SkillBridge is only 60 days or they only have 30 days of leave. Like, that's a huge advantage. I don't know. What would you say about that, Cameron?
Yeah, I would, going back, I would say, that somebody who meets all the requirements, they're 95% complete towards their AMP. All they have to really do is put in a lot of hard work in a short amount of time and take some tests. But yeah, in terms of flexibility, yeah, I'd say we are, and we will cater to them, and we'll get them taken care of for sure.
That's awesome. The requirements, and I'm sure they're online and you can chat GPT it, but just generally off the top of your head, I don't know them. I will try my best. You have engine, you have prop, you have electric, pneumatics, hydraulics. Like, I'm just trying to list off things where as people are listening, they're like, I can do that. Can't do that, but maybe I'll go get that. What are some general requirements that these guys and girls will have to get tested on?
Right. I mean, it's a plethora of things. But
Oh, okay.
I can
My
kind of,
bad.
I can kind of speak to the gaps, right? That,
Sure.
that what they don't have experience on: radial engines, reciprocating engines, dope and fabric, sheet metal, uh, electronics. Your typical crew chief isn't out there splicing wires, um, and things of that nature. But in terms of like
Okay.
the
Not
big
none of
ticket
which I
items,
know.
yeah, maybe cabin pressurization, right? Because we don't deal a lot with that in helicopters. That's a big one, but it's nothing but a couple valves. Pretty simple concept.
Simple, says the mechanic. It's magic
Yeah.
to me. That's just simple. It's just a flux capacitor. It's not that big a deal. Uh, so in terms of so we talked about timeline, SkillBridge, which is awesome, program all around. Um, for someone who's looking to do this, it would be a full time, so they would have to physically be day to day, 9 to 5 ish, on location. It's not something they could come and do for 2 or 3 days and then go home and then come back. Like, what would it look like for someone? They would be on station for three to 4 months.
Right. Ideally, if it was somebody local, sure, we could work something out with them. But ideally, if we're not turning wrenches, they're in the book studying, and making themselves more successful to pass this test.
That's very good. And then when they're done, is it kind of for the mentor on the mechanic side? Is it similar where I know whether it's a partnership or kind of releasing them into the wild of what's the next thing? Just because when you're in the military, it's really hard to pick your head out of the foxhole and say, I'm going to go to this program or that program. Once they're there in that space and they're not going to work, is there a mechanism where they're kind of taught like, hey, here's some opportunities, here's some conventions? Is it kind of the same thing as the pilots?
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, they would get assigned a mentor, which would most likely be myself. Yeah, and we would afford those opportunities to them, and post, we'll call it post AMP. Post AMP, we're trying to here in the near future open up our own maintenance department here at Manhattan, Kansas. So we're looking to do a lot of hiring with AMPs. The challenge with that though is there is a shortage of AMPs, and I think we're going to talk about that later. It's trying to keep those very qualified AMPs at the general aviation level before they get plucked by the majors or the airlines 135, 121 operators.
No, I love that. And that's the huge part because getting the instruction and the certification is one part of it, but and again, I want to say the next thing is if staying in the general aviation is not what people can do. Just the mentorship, the education is huge. And I know we're trying to um, stress this for RTAG this year, the convention in
Right.
October in Denver. Is hey, if you're it started kind of as a pilot, rotor to airline group, but it's much more than that. And Josh and Tim and Jim, they've done an awesome job of and Eric of making it such a large impact across the board. And so we're telling folks, we're telling pilots, hey, bring your crew chief with you. Bring your crew chief, because the people there looking for people to fly the planes, they equally as much need people to maintain them as well. Um, so are you guys going this year to Denver?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I got my
I
ticket
will be going. Yep.
probably 3 weeks
Yep.
ago. Yeah, we'll be there.
It's gonna be good.
Okay, so yes, so right there, and I love that, and I didn't know you guys, we're bringing the maintenance to it, but boys and girls who are listening, if you're a pilot, bring a mechanic, have them go to Flex Air, talk to Cameron, ask questions. It is intimidating, it is unknown, but you're closer to the target than you think you are. And engaging with a human, with people who care, with a flight school, with a program that can get you what you need. You don't know what you need right now. I mean, you might because you can use the internet, but talking with people who are in the business of helping you, fellow veterans who know what you need, can set you up for success. And go to the conference. Bring your buddies. So I love that you guys are going to be there and you're supporting that because, again, people love to talk about pilots, but planes don't fly unless they work. So that's super important. Well, awesome. In terms of SkillBridge, have you seen people who do the SkillBridge, are they able to kind of complete most of their training in that window, or are they having to use some leave too, or kind of what's some trends you're seeing on the SkillBridge side?
Everything is all proficiency based, right? As I said earlier, people learn at different rates. Some people are able to do it, some people aren't and have to stay here additional time, but I think I
That'd
lost
be
you
me.
guys.
I'd be the slow man in the class, but well, I love that too. The the pay, you kind of pace yourself because there's nothing worse than either people going too fast or going too slow. So,
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah. On that, I'd like to touch on it, and the reason why we do that as well, and again, remaining that flexibility, because as that transition occurs, we know the service members still have other things they need to knock out to to help their home front, right? So they have to go to their medical appointments. They still have to get their family situated and stuff. So we accommodate to that, and so that's why when we talk about timelines, yes, we could have a you know 9 to 5 work schedule, but we understand, hey, listen, you got to go. Understood. Completely understand. You'll be okay. So,
No, that's good. Yeah, because we get a lot of questions from SkillBridge candidates saying, hey, I have to out process or I have to do something for my family. Is that okay? And it's like, yes,
yep.
the reason BreakTurn is very selective in who we partner with in terms of SkillBridge partners is that we only want partners who have the veteran's best interest in mind, as well as have that flexibility. And there's some sort of military representative in that company, the host company, that understands, yeah, I get it. Your first sergeant wants this or that. Like, you got to go. We're okay with that. Just communicate with us. So I love that.
Right. Yep.
The last question I had, for A&P, how do I pay for this? How much does
Right.
this cost, or can I use GI Bill? Like, what are people doing for that?
Yeah. So everything here at FlexAir on the SkillBridge is free, right? You don't have to pay us anything to come join our SkillBridge program. But for the course, the expedited course, which is highly recommended, it's a $4,000 course, and you can use. I'm not familiar with other branches of service, but the Army. Eddie, maybe you can go in depth on this, but Army Ignited or Cool.
Yep. Yep. Correct.
Oh man.
Yeah, they got the Don Cool, the Department of Navy Cool for the Navy and the Marine Corps. But yeah, exact same stuff. You can utilize that. Some people just pay out of the pocket. Some people obviously take loans, but that's highly feasible.
No, that's great. And I do appreciate you mentioning it because I know, and I sound repetitive, but there's different people watching. SkillBridge inherently isn't, there's no money that comes with the program known as SkillBridge. SkillBridge is your ability to not show up to work, but go over here and get vocational training or academic training or internship training. That's a time-based mechanism. The funding piece is entirely different. So
Correct.
GI
Yep.
Bill, Cool, I don't know, Voc
Vet Tech.
Rehab,
There's
Vet
Vet Tech.
Tech.
Yeah. Yeah. Voc
Yep.
Rehab, people know it as VR&E. And,
Mhm.
since we're on that, I could talk a little bit about that, but that's a great benefit for all service members to have. You basically can, so 180 days now before you get out of the service, you can start your medical claim and for your disability, which is way better than what it used to be. And so that's perfect because by the time you get out, for example, I started at 176 days out when I put in my disability claim, and so that day I got out, which was Halloween, that following month, I already had a rating that in 2 weeks after that, and then that following month is when I started collecting the disability.
Mm.
And so then from that moment, once you have a disability rating, that's when you can reach out to the VR&E counselors in your area, and they'll send you through an orientation, kind of give you the ins and outs of what VR&E is about, and then you get assigned a VR&E counselor, and that's a whole new journey because it's not guaranteed. Um, it's tough. You got to sell yourself. So it's not what everybody makes it out to be. Like, oh yeah, you're going to rate it automatically. No, not really. And there is a percentage where you're going to want to kind of stay around because flying, right? Because it could affect your flying, whether you get a class 1 or so on and so on. So that's a whole things those are whole new learning curves that we get to present to everybody that joins our team.
I love that. And I would be in true staff officer form, I would be remiss, or to piggyback off of what Sergeant Major said, this opportunity to remind folks the transition process. And this is for Flexair, this is for everybody, but a little bit off topic, maybe on topic. It's my bread and butter. The reminder that when you go to transition, the time that you have to start doing things is going to come sooner than you think. So, getting the VA rating for VR&E, to get SkillBridge approved or potentially approved, is you have to bring it up with your chain of command early. For your VA disability, you got to start going to your flight surgeon or to the doc and getting your file set. Because I'm a realist. I'm aware that if you're in a flight role, we don't talk about our ailments because I don't want to get a down slip. And that's a very real thing. Now, all flight surgeons I know, that none of them are looking to downslip you. Our flight surgeon corps is amazing, but we have that inherent kind of fear that if I say that I have a knee problem, that I'm going to get a downslip, right? At some point, you have to decide, and I say personally, a year out, so 365 days from when you intend to ETS or retire, you need to start taking things seriously. Your medical stuff. Do you want to do a SkillBridge? Do you have GI Bill? Do you want to apply for COOL? WIOA is another one, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. There's scholarships. RTAG has a ton of scholarships. The Break Turn Academy has thousands of scholarships. These things all take time. What are you going to do with your family if you don't live in Kansas or California? And you want to go for a couple months, are you going to move them? Are they going to be like, these things take time. And so about a year out, you need to take off I'm going to row the boat hard, and you need to start looking at how to take care of yourself and ergo your family during your transition. So I appreciate you bringing it up, that timeline there. Well, that's good. Yeah, scholarships again, 4K. I know plenty of people don't have 4K sitting around, but using your veteran benefits to your advantage, getting scholarships, you just have to apply yourself. And if you can get financials lined up, or maybe you're going to save your GI Bill for something different, maybe you want to get your flight ratings in the future, or maybe you gave it to your kids, there is plenty of funding sources out there. Connect with people, socialize, go to RTAG and say, hey, what sort of funding options can I have that isn't me paying $4,000 out of my checking account? Because it's well worth it. A career as a mechanic is very lucrative from what I understand. So don't let that be a point of contention for you not to get this ticket, if you will, to go do an awesome career as a maintainer. So I love that. What did I miss about AMPs other than they're awesome and they're magicians and they can fix everything?
They're typically extremely handsome as well.
Yeah, look at that hair.
Yes.
You can tell by his hair.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love it. I was saying before, it's just every time there's an issue with the plane, I call a maintainer as this helpless child, and they show up and they just look at it and they hit it twice and they give me the thumbs up and they walk out, and I'm just like, they're like famous. I'm like, how did you do that? It's so very much appreciate my mechanics. Y'all are amazing. So love that. Well, good. Well, I guess the next kind of side of the house, if you will, is some flight training. You have 3 flight schools looking to stand up another one on the East Coast. What's the flight school look like? What's the CFI to student ratio? What's the program? Is it a 141? What's the fleet look like? Tell me about the flight training.
Yeah, so we'll start, I guess, with locations and fleet. So OJC, Olathe, Kansas City, is Part 141 and Part 61. They are all Romeo Sierra Model 172s, and there's currently 5 of them there. Here at Manhattan, Kansas, we have a fleet of 5, and we have 4 172s, November, Mike, and Papa models, and then a Beechcraft Travel Air, a Beechcraft Travel Air multi-engine airplane. And then out at MYF, we have 4 Cessna 172s, and they're Mike, November, and Papa model as well. We have more instructors than we have airplanes. And in terms of student instructor load, that all varies, right? It ebbs and flows. But in the last 2 years, at no point have we reached capacity with a CFI or a student. And in fact, airplane as well. Now, occasionally, this aviation, everybody knows aviation. Maintenance comes up, airplanes break. So, we kind of we take that day by day, but try to minimize downtime on airplanes. But there's typically enough availability to shove somebody over to another airplane. Um,
No, I love that. The aircraft type, newer model Cessnas, in terms of the, are they, do any of them have glass? So Garmin, so that the students, as they get through their progression of flight training, I'm assuming, to get familiar with that, whether it's automation or working with systems, because flying the plane and managing your cross check is one thing, but if you decide to go to a airline or an advanced aircraft, managing those systems is darn near as hard as flying the dang thing. So what does
right.
that look like for the fleet as well?
So I guess we have different variations of glass, but our most complicated or complex glass is going to be at Olathe, and that's going to be the full G1000 setup with coupled autopilot. But Manhattan and San Diego, you're going to see, G5. So dual G5s would be max, and that would just be kind of an AHRS setup. But
No, that's great. For those who may not know, so the Garmin suite, think of it as a screen, right? And they all virtually do the same thing. It's the size of the screen and some of the interoperability with the aircraft, and you've got the autopilot function as well. Um, those are huge. The if you're going to fly for a carrier, managing those systems, building the route, checking it, entering, holding, managing descents, navigating, communicating via a system, whether it's a small screen or a big screen. G1000, I'm speaking out of turn, but I believe that's the largest screen. That's the deluxe Garmin package. It can get you behind the aircraft. And so getting through flight training and going through a place where they have the option for you to fly these glass cockpits, especially with that autopilot. Autopilot will rock you to sleep, and you can get into trouble with an autopilot. So getting your brain used to flying a system, you're still managing the aircraft, but you're managing the system. That's a huge advantage. And so FlexAir having those is a big deal. Otherwise, if you just fly a six pack, which isn't bad, I'm not saying that that's bad. It's just an additional advantage to you. If you're managing a system, when you go to a ground school, you're used to, how do I enter an unpublished holding, or how do I manage a descent? I need you to be at, 8,000 in 2 minutes or less. How do I make the plane do that if the autopilot's engaged? That's a skill that needs to be worked on, I think. So that's awesome. Um, the question I had so the CFIs and the planes, multi-engine aircraft, that's a huge thing too. Is that program, the multi side, is that generally you get all of your single engine commercial, and then you jump in the multi to get your multi commercial, and then do 10, 15 hours, or what does that piece look like?
yeah, so are we talking RTP or like a pilot pathway guy?
Let's start with RTP.
All right. So typically RTPs, they're going to skip single engine commercial because they don't want to fly a single engine commercially. So they'll go right into the multi engine commercial. And what that looks like is, you get in the airplane, and most RTP guys want that 25 hours in the multi. So we'll get them as close to that 25 hours before their check ride, and then send them to a check ride. We could do it in 10 hours. Everything's proficiency based, right? But we want to send that applicant to the check ride with the most experience in that airplane to help them be better prepared for that check ride. So if they were ready for the check ride in 10 hours, we're going to keep them in there for probably another 14 hours practicing maneuvers to help them pass that check ride. If we send them to the check ride, we're kind of missing out on that other 15 hours instead, because let's say they passed at 10 hours, now they're just really poking holes in the sky and wasting time and money when they could really be polishing that skill set. So that's how we try to do it. And it's a quick program. Multicom is very, very fast.
That's good. And then the elephant in the room, Eddie, the DPE availability. I know those DPEs are unicorns right now. What does that look like for someone? They go to Flex Air, they're flying these planes, they're getting their ratings, and then they're ready to take a test. What's the evaluation process look like from whichever location they're at?
You want me to speak on that, Eddie?
Okay. Yeah, I just want to give credit to my base managers, right? So Cameron's tearing it up. It's all about relationships and just make sure that, they like us and we like them. But go ahead, Cameron.
Yeah, DPE's got a hard job. And you'll read on Reddit, I can't get a check ride, and somebody wants to fly out to the East Coast to get a check ride. We're all in the same boat. We're all, wherever you are in the United States, we're all in the same boat. And there are great DPEs. The DPEs are doing a great job. They're just overly saturated right now. So typically what it's looking like at each location is about 6 weeks out, our CFIs come to us and say, hey, he's going to be ready for a check ride in 6 weeks. And then we start hunting up a check ride for that guy or that gal. So we need about a 6 week lead time on that, which we've been pretty good about getting. For our RTP guys are a little different in nature. I got to start if they start training with us in, we'll say, a month, I need to start looking for them a check ride today, 6 weeks out. If when they start their PPL add-on, I need to be looking for their instrument add-on check ride. So it's just forecasting those check rides, and we've been pretty successful in getting those and having timely manners. But the event that you have to cancel or reschedule for weather or you're sick, that just adds a cure time on it. But we can't forecast that. So to answer your question, about 6 weeks.
No, I mean, it's a good answer. I mean, and what I hear from that, and for folks who may not know, the DPE, Designated Pilot Examiner, I should know my acronyms better. That's the guy or girl who gives you your final exam in the aircraft, and there's an oral. And if and when you pass, you go into IACRA and you get that certification. DPEs are few and far in between. But what I heard you say, which is huge in my opinion, is when you go to Flex Air, they are looking at that for you. When they bring you to the program, or you're going to come to the program, they're kind of setting expectations of when to get that lined up for you, opposed to other flight schools where we'll get you all the way to being signed off to go take that check, but that's on you to go find your DPE, while you're also worrying about transitioning, while you're also worrying about eights on pylons, while you're also worrying about all these things. The fact that they're looking out for you and trying to line up that DPE, that's a huge advantage in my opinion, which is awesome. You mentioned so what's the difference between, so you've got your RTPs, maybe outline real quick what that looks like. You said they jump straight into their commercial multi. How does that contrast against someone who was an artillery officer and they have to go through the pilot pathway? What's the difference there?
Right. So slightly different. So when they're in their single engine commercial, they're required to have 10 hours complex time. So while they're doing single engine commercial, we're going to give them 10 hours of complex time in our multi-engine airplane, right? So they'll, going into multi-engine, they'll already have 10 hours in it. So it'll be like a 5-hour fresh up. They're ready to take the check ride. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does. And then for the pilot pathway, so someone who really doesn't have anything, what would that look like? Probably would they show up and they would just start from ground school, or would that be, how would that work for someone trying to do that?
Right. So anybody who's not adding a rating on, we'll call it an RTP guy. Yeah, they're gonna start at ground level, do a ground school. They're gonna go into, this is Part 61 syllabus. 141 is totally different. Most RTP guys, the 141 is too slow for them, if that makes sense. So they'll start with a ground school and a RIT. So pilot pathway, anybody who's not an add-on guy, RTP guy, they got to take all the written tests, right? So they got to take additional tests. So they'll take their private pilot written test and then move into private pilot, take their check ride, and then they'll go into a program we call SRM, and they'll build up to 35 hours solo cross country for that 50-hour instrument rating requirement. Then they'll take their IRA, their instrument rating, and then typically they'll take their FII as well with that IRA. And then they'll go into instrument, take their check ride, and then go into CRM. And in CRM, they're really just time building with somebody else under the foggles. And that's to some need it, some don't, depending on how fast they finish the prior 2 ratings. If they were a little longer in the tooth and they don't need to time build, they'll go right into commercial. But if they need to build some time, say they checked instrument in 140 hours, they'll need to build a little time to get closer to that 250-hour mark before they start commercial training. Then from commercial, then after CRM, they'll move right into commercial training. And then from commercial, depending on their timeline and our timeline, they'll either go into our CFI Academy over in Kansas City or right into multi-engine training here.
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple things, and I don't want to get into it too much just for the folks listening. There's another episode we did about funding and the different parts, right? Part 61, part 141. The cliff notes on it is, think of part 41 it's a signed off program by the FAA with the flight school. It's attached to university syllabus. It's more class, task, condition standards. It's more of what we're used to from a start here, and then we have a time and gates to meet. You cannot go faster. You cannot go slower. It is a pipeline. There's different funding options, advantageous with 141. Part 61 is more, we're just going to do what the FARs say, the CFRs, and we're going to get you what you need in the correct order. But if you crush it and you go fast, you go fast. And the funding options for that are a little different as well. But what I like about that is that you have the ability to do both. So if someone says, hey, I'm in it to win it. I want to do the year program or 2-year program 141 because I want to use more of a GI Bill, awesome. If someone says, hey, I just need to jump in the seat and get my ratings and go a little faster, we have that too, which is great. But I also love that you had said that you're looking and you're planning those things, which I would propose, other than like a Farmer Joe or mom and pop flight school, having someone know what you need. Again, you're layering in, I'm transitioning, it's a new culture, I may have to move, all of these personal things, to also have to, keep track of your hours of cross country. To have someone help you with that piece is huge. And that's definitely an advantage as you're doing everything else transitioning, to have someone say, hey, we're going to fly you for 40 hours or 50 hours for the rating requirement, and then we're going to get you up. And you're like, all right, like, let's do it. So that's a huge advantage. I love that. If someone were to do, so RTP, I would propose, or anyone with, you had said who are already certified, their program is faster. If someone wanted to start at 0 and use a SkillBridge, they likely wouldn't be able to finish the whole program to where RTP could. Could they get through a good portion of that on a SkillBridge? What would you say about that?
So I think I'm a great example. I did SkillBridge through FlexAir, and I had a 6-month SkillBridge. I think the times are condensed now based off your rank, right? I think like senior enlisted or officers only get like 2 months, and then the less rank you have, the more time you get. But I was fortunate enough. I got a 6-month SkillBridge and no flight experience. And I was able, 3 days after I retired, I took my instrument check ride. So I got a fair chunk of that knocked out within 6 months. And students who train, like I said, FlexAir, the flexibility, we let you pick your schedule. We consider full-time students training 4 days a week. But the students we see requesting, 7 blocks a week, 7 dual blocks a week, ultimately make it through the program a lot faster, and they save themselves a lot of money by training at that pace. So it's all based off, really how hard the student wants to train, and the harder they train, the more
Hmm.
successful they are. Does that answer your
Oh, I love
question,
that.
Landon?
No, it absolutely does. And I think, again, another opportunity to state if we don't communicate to our chain of command early about SkillBridge, or if we have it in our mind that SkillBridge just doesn't get approved for me or my unit, that may be so. But what I would encourage folks is, if you're saying to yourself, well, I don't want to try that because I can't finish the program on a SkillBridge because I need more than 3 months or 2 months and I don't have leave, you're leaving opportunity on the table. If you can get 2 months, 3 months, 4 months on a SkillBridge, and you're 4 months down the road of this whole transition occupation route, you're going to put yourself in a better position. You're still getting paid your paycheck from the military, you still have insurance, all of your money side of things is still intact during SkillBridge. And if you don't finish it in the SkillBridge window or on leave or whatever, that's fine. Instead of being unemployed as a student for a year, right? Maybe you only have 6 months where you have to. So I would encourage folks, if you don't know about SkillBridge, if you're unsure if you should try it because you don't think you can finish in the window, that's okay. FlexAir is flexible. They're going to be able to say, hey, we're going to get you through to this point on a SkillBridge, and if we have to check you out on this particular gate, and you got to go out, process and clear whatever, and you got to take a couple weeks off and then come back, like, let's do this. But don't miss the opportunity. You're leaving time and money and kind of peace with you and your family on the table if you don't pursue a SkillBridge at all. That'd be my recommendation. I don't know if y'all see it the same or not. So
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%.
well, I was looking it up. We had talked about this before. There are two semi-famous individuals who went through your program. I know Tim Kirschbaugh went through, founder or co-founder of RTAG, and Jason Duvernay. They both went through FlexAir, and they're now. What are they doing now? They're flying for. They're doing the thing, right? They went through FlexAir. Is that correct?
Right, that is correct. Before my time, but some very, very famous names with FlexAir you just brought up. Legacies, if you will.
Yeah. So I mean, I bring them up because I think that we all know the people and the character of those guys, and they. I don't say they paved the way. I mean, they did, but they went through a process. They found a school that was quality, that could get them what they needed to get to the next thing for them, and now they're both flying for major airlines, legacy airlines, doing great. They're helping out with unions. They're working out with ALPA. So use those guys and their stories to your advantage. There's no reason to pave your own path per se. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if people ahead of you have done it and have kind of validated the system, follow in their footsteps.
Right.
Do what they did. We know the quality of the training at FlexAir, and it clearly yields good results because these guys are working at their dream jobs. And so, use that as inspiration and call them up. Hey, what was your experience, or what did you like about it? Because I'm sure they'd love to talk with you about it and share their experience. So I love bringing up those two because they're amazing people.
Yeah, Landon, we actually, like you mentioned earlier, right? When you know a school, when the school's already knows what you need. So what we do in advance is we reach out to, we have some prior students, we have current chief pilots, captains, and we do a thing called flight view from the flight deck. And so what that does, we bring them on, host a webinar. All our students, any of our alumni can join, any of our instructors can join, and so we just hear it, right? Because a lot of our students are striving to be in their shoes one day, and so they want to hear, like, what was your journey like? What were some of the difficulties? And so just hearing it from firsthand, it's always great.
It's the old it's the military, man. Like, if you're about to go to a school or deploy or flight school or something, you're going to ask the guy in front of you, like, hey, come here. Like, what was it like? What do I need to know? It's the same outside the military. So use that to your advantage. Get the cheat codes or the G2, or I guess they call it gouge now, which is, I guess, is an Air Force term, but it'll always be G2 to me. Again, I'm a broken record, but if you're hearing what's being said, FlexAir is a one-stop shop. So get out of your head and call somebody and ask questions. I'm thinking about doing maintenance things. How do I do a SkillBridge, or how do I access my GI Bill, or I don't want to, and folks will help you. Every podcast I find myself saying, networking, talk to human beings, hit the keyboard, pick up the phone and collect that data, because people are standing by to help you, which is what I love about the aviation community. But you can just have that real conversation with folks. I mean, listen, transition's hard. The decision to get out is hard, or retire is hard. But if you would, listen to what's being said, is there's a bridge, right? To be tongue in cheek, there's a bridge, and on the other side of the bridge, there's veterans there waiting for you to help you. So call them, use their wisdom. They want to assist. It's the same as when you were in the service, outside the service. Use that to your advantage. I feel bad sometimes for folks who don't have that, who kind of have to go about it on their own. So I get excited, chatting with guys like you, where it's like, if you're confused or you don't know, there's a team of 15 people that would be like, come over here, like, let's talk. And so I encourage folks, if you're on the fence about the decision to get out or what it looks like, send Eddie, send Cameron an email and just engage in conversation, and they'll set you up. They'll set you straight. They may say, hey, I would wait another year and a half. I would wait another year and a half, or renew your contract for one more year, whatever the case may be. They're going to give you real advice because they understand your situation, and they're not just trying to get you in the door because they're veterans themselves, which is a huge advantage. But
right. And to add to that, that's kind of interesting. Eddie brought that up, but on the instructor side of the house, when we're training with veterans, whether it be a RTP guy or a infantry Marine guy, or an Air Force cook that's learning how to fly an airplane, veterans are very receptive to criticism in the airplane, which I think adds a lot of value, right? They don't get upset. So, adds a lot of value, and RTP guys are probably even the best at it.
I'm laughing because I remember, I had great instructors in the military. I mean, there was not a single one that I did not learn so much
Right.
from, but I remember being told I sucked so often. And then when I got out of the military, people stopped telling me that I sucked, and it felt weird because I'm used to, because you strive for perfection. You strive for perfection,
Right.
and there's several stories I could share, which I won't. But you would do a maneuver, and you'd look over and say, "How was it?" And they'd be like, "That was a really good job." And in my mind, I'm like, "You're supposed to tell me I sucked and that I could have done this better and that better." And so it's true though, and I love that culture. Well, that's awesome. The last thing that I wanted to kind of chat about is just kind of, again, elephant in the room is, we'll release this hopefully in a next couple weeks, but the industry is kind of dragging right now. I'm new to the industry. I'll admit it. I haven't been around for cycles, but pilot hiring is slow. Airlines are just kind of figuring things out. What would you guys say for someone who is looking at either an A&P venture or a pilot venture, saying, I don't really know if I want to go pursue that because right now the waters are looking a little rough. What sort of encouraging things would you say to kind of help that person make a decision for them?
I'll talk about the A&P side of the house and then the pilot side of the house. So there's going to be an A&P shortage, I think, predicted until 2028. New mechanic certs are up 32% this year. School enrollments, aviation maintenance technical school enrollments are up 6%. And then military pathway certifications are up 32%, which is huge. So that's saying that, hey, these veterans are out there getting their certificates and capitalizing on this. So in terms of the A&P side of the house, there's no shortage. They're looking to hire 25,000 A&Ps by 2028, which is huge. In terms of the hiring slowdown, we can call it a hiring slowdown, but I think what people have goals, people have dreams, people have aspirations. Those typically involve the big name 135, 121 operators, right? But there's still plenty of jobs out there, single engine jobs out there, commercial and multi-engine jobs out there commercially, that aren't associated with a legacy air carrier, regional, or some of the big 135 guys. But there are plenty of jobs out there.
No, I love what you said. I wrote a couple things down. AMP shortage. We need AMPs. End of story. There's a need for you. We need you. The industry needs you. So use your skills. There's a place for you. And then for the pilot hiring, my favorite thing to recommend to young folks is go find a silver-haired man or woman and ask them their story and their experience in the aviation community. And they will tell you, they'll help you adapt your perspective. Can you guys still hear me?
We got
okay.
you. Yeah.
They'll help you adapt your perspective. They'll give you a paradigm to help you with your decision. The hiring waves, they're a real thing. And just because right now it's not great, doesn't mean it's always going to be that way.